And here we are. Hi, Dolores. Nice to see you here. You're the only one I can see at this point. We're going to share for a while, and we'll be back in a few minutes. So thank you. Hi, Kay. I can see you now. I still don't know if I'll be able to see you in the interface, but I can see you now, so that's great. Hi, Laura. Hi, Amber. Hi, Dolores. Great to see you here. Let's see. So here we are. I'm going to take away the promo. And hello, everybody. We have people watching on Facebook and on YouTube, and also on the KRTD Media YouTube as well. So, Dolores, glad to see you both on Facebook and on YouTube. Thank you for sharing in both places. Laura, thank you for sharing. Amber, always good to see you and to be one of your lovelies. Hi, Lana. Great to see you as always. Carmen, it's wonderful to see you. She says, good evening, Joe and Bonnie, esteemed guests and loyal followers. It's wonderful to see you here tonight, sharing. And Lana says, children photobombing your guests. Well, I don't know about that, but we'll see. And Scott Denoyer is here, and Jeff Denton is here too. I'm glad to see both of you stalwarts here. You're both really stalwarts. It's Steve Gonzo. Okay, Marianna put her thumbs up, I noticed. So, everybody, my guest for tonight is the chairperson of the board of Whole Washington, and it is Marianna Everson, also known as Nurse Mana. Has a long career, okay, in nursing and very successful efforts at Whole Washington as well. And I am very glad to finally have a chance to talk to her. Now, let me get control of my screen here. Here we are. We're in better shape now. Okay, so let's find out what has been going on at Whole Washington. So could you give us a rundown, please, of what's been happening in the last 6 months or so?
All right. Thanks for having me here. This is really fun. I haven't done one of these in a little while, so thanks for getting me back in the groove.
Oh, well, thank you for coming.
All right. So due to, you guys have discussed, I'm sure, at length, due to the Delta variant of the coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, we had to suspend our signature gathering efforts. But I think it's a great opportunity for us to really get organized and bring more people in and have it even more solid than when we began this journey, even from the beginning. So even in this year, 2021, when we started, it was like, we are desperate. We are in a pandemic. We need healthcare, and we still do, and that's not changed. But I think my opinion is we rushed, and we could be even more effective with more organizing. So we have a fantastic campaign director, Joshua Chambers, and he is with a member. All members of the team that are joining in are organizing like mad right now to have signature captains to do the legislative work at the state level that we need to do, and then we can come back even stronger next time and be even more prepared. So that's what we're doing right now. We're organizing, and we are doing our legislative efforts, because in Washington, the legislative session is like a biennium. Like they do two. My 6-year-old is trying to come to the door. They introduce legislation the first year, and then it carries through to the second year. So we're in the second half of the biennium. And so our bill is still there. It's still active. We have a legislative team that are working on any edits that needed to be done, strengthening pieces. One thing that sticks out to me is strengthening the program so that it makes sure that it covers everything that it can for our disability neighbors. I know that we're working on many things, but that's one of the things that sticks out into my mind. So we can come in even stronger. We can have even more people prepared. And then we have, I know you talked to Susan about the finance part, about the study done by Dr. Friedman. And so then we can.
To Cindy.
Oh, Cindy, sorry. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, Cindy Jacobs, yeah.
Wrong name. Sorry about that, Cindy. And Susan. About that, about updating the finance part, like how we pay for it part. So, which is going to look even better than it did last time we did it. So,
yeah, I think I have some of the updated figures because I saw a draft.
Oh, good.
But I haven't seen the final copy yet, which Cindy indicated a few weeks ago was going to be momentarily out. Have you any further information on when that's going to come out?
I don't have any further information personally, no.
Okay. But I did have a couple of other questions too, just for my own understanding. Sure. Where does Andre Stackhouse stand in relation to, did you say Joshua Chambers?
Yeah, Josh is our campaign director, and Andre has stepped up into a field director position, basically. he recognized our need for that position to be filled, and we are trying to make fundraising efforts so that we can afford to pay him for his work. But at this point, he's a volunteer field director.
Okay, so Andre actually reports to Josh
Yeah,
in
they work
the
together.
Washington structure, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
They work together.
Yeah.
Who does the strategic work in the campaign, or do they both do it?
I think they work together, but the buck stops with Joshua Chambers.
Okay, got it. Thanks for clarifying that. Okay. The second thing, okay, I wanted to ask, which was prompted by your comments on sort of reconsidering parts of the legislation.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, would you add comprehensive long-term care into the program for seniors?
That is mandated in the statute to have that piece so many years. It's going to take a little while until we can get the waiver for Medicare and Medicaid, right? But it's in the statute mandated that um, it be taken care of by, depending on when it's instituted. So say if it were instituted in 2022, then 2026 it has to be, it's mandated that it be taken care of, that sort of thing. But we would have to have the Medicare and Medicaid. My impression is, I might be wrong, so don't quote me, but my impression
I
is
won't
that
coach.
we need to be we need to have the waiver to completely pay for that. But we can make lives better in the meantime. So say someone lived in a assisted living situation, the trust would pay for them to have an in-home caregiver to come and help with household chores, medication reminder, that sort of thing. So it would improve the lives of people, older people and people with disabilities in the first place. And then as the fund grows, then we could start completely just paying for residential care. So right now it just doesn't pay for residential care. So it pays for in-home care, right? If you have your own place, and you need some help in your own place, it pays for that stuff, but it doesn't pay for residential care. So like in-home nursing home care or like adult family home situation, which is mandated that we are going to pay for that, but we have to get through the initial, you know, startup.
All right. Okay. So that's a part of the bill, actually.
Yes.
Okay. In the draft I saw, okay, of the financials, the prospects were very good that by 4 or 5 years out, there would likely be a huge surplus.
Right. Which is when we could pay for long-term care.
That was what I was figuring. But also, that wasn't really entirely contingent on getting the waivers after 4 or 5 years, because in the economic study, the operating assumption was that it would be possible to operate as a Medicare Advantage
Correct.
vendor,
Right.
and also the state as the fiduciary for the Medicaid program would be able to have the state agency take over the Medicaid program and offer at least as good a Medicaid program as they had before.
Right.
So that would qualify them as performing their fiduciary duty to Medicaid.
Yes.
And so that would allow both the federal funds for Medicare and the federal funds for Medicaid, okay, to go to the state, which was really a huge proportion of the federal funds that could be made available to the state. As I recall, the figures for 2021, that was going to account for 34 billion of the 46.5 billion that was available from federal, or other sources,
Right.
to cover the costs, of healthcare. So, I mean, I thought that was really, really
It's excellent.
looked like a good picture.
Yes. Yes.
Really strong picture economically.
Right. I'm sorry. I guess I was kind of trying to make it simple for people to understand, I guess, in my answer. Like, okay, so we'll have the surplus, and whichever one happens first, right? Like, we get to a surplus, we start paying for that. We get the waiver, we start paying for that. We do this other way with the Medicaid money, we start paying for that. But whichever thing happens first, we start paying for long-term care, or
Right.
increase the premium or decrease the premiums if there are any when we start, decrease the costs to the residents of Washington.
The premiums accounted for only a very, very small proportion of the total amount that was going to be raised from state sources.
Right. Right.
I always get these two mixed up, but I believe it was only 2.7% of the total that was going to be raised from the state sources.
Right.
So it seemed like those could be dispensed with most probably within a year's time.
Yeah, or not at all. Or that's one of the things we're trying to do as we improve the bill for this year's session and for this year's signature gathering efforts for the initiative, is to see if we can just get rid of the premium altogether and not even start with the premium. That's one of the things we'd like to do, and it seems pretty likely.
Yeah, I think it's pretty likely too, if it only accounts for 2.7% of the total.
Right.
And if you're looking at total fundraising at the state level of, it was 32.7 billion. 2.7% of that is not much, and you could afford to forego it and still have most of the $12 billion surplus that was actually projected.
Right.
So one of the changes you're saying that may be in the offing is that you may be able to say right from the get-go, no premium.
Right. That's what we're hoping to do.
That would be one very popular thing.
Yeah, wouldn't it?
That would really be one great thing. Yeah.
Yes.
For people, boy, they would love that.
It would be sure to get a lot of votes that way.
I think so.
Here come the kids again. You guys gotta stay out of here, please.
I gotta grab my
Okay, buddy. We got stuff to do, Mom.
Okay, so then the focus over the next few months is going to be really heavily on legislation on the one hand, and on getting the team ready for the signature gathering on the other. And I had a conversation with Andre, about a week ago, and he laid out his plan for the 800 signature captains, which, by the way, seemed absolutely wonderful to us here. It just seemed like such a practical plan, and so safe because there was so much flex in it, that
Right.
there was such an amount of overkill in it that there could be huge errors, in the projections, and you'd still easily make your targets. It's the kind of strong plan that everybody wants to go with. And we were very enthused here, and we were also interested in the possibilities of sharing the plan to other states, as well, but along the way.
Right.
How do you feel about that?
I love it. I absolutely think that's I know I can see my screen is frozen. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you just fine.
Okay, good. And at least I'm not sticking out my tongue in that part.
No, you're not sticking out your tongue. You look perfectly fine. Everything's cool.
Okay, that is the whole goal of whole Washington. I mean, we're not selfish people who wanted this for Washington residents, right? We are passionate about single payer healthcare for everyone in the country, right? We fight on all fronts, like Laura taught me. We want we can
That's
spread this.
exactly what people would expect from Bernie-crats.
That's right. That's exactly right. So that's exactly what we want to do. Is if we can build on what we've learned and spread that across. There's no reason for another group in another state to start from the beginning and work their way through it all over again. If we can share what we know and that helps them get further faster, then I'm all for it. Absolutely. There's no reason to, reinvent the wheel every time we want to do something.
Yeah, it seemed to me like the kind of plan that Andre had would be very useful in California, in New York, in Massachusetts. Just to name 3 states that seem to be getting up ahead of steam right now.
Yeah.
Okay, to cycle back, though, now just a little, but to the legislation. What's your assessment of the chances of actually getting the bill through the legislature this term?
Oh, that's not going to happen. The neoliberal Democratic caucus is never going to let this through without the groundswell that we've only gotten this far, having it in the legislature and having them respond with these fake like Cascade Care and other bills. We've only got this far because of our grassroots efforts at Whole Washington, and they're this year they're not going to pass. We will be lucky to get a hearing, but that is like what we want. Is like that's our goal. At least if we could get a hearing. So we want them to. We would be like so proud of them and so happy to be Washingtonians and have them pass this. But realistically, they take too much money from pharmaceutical companies and the insurance industry to ever have the courage to stand up to them and pass this. They know this is what is needed, but they are too entrenched in their political activities to make it happen. And that's unfortunate, but it's the truth, and it's where we are. So, but we're going to do everything that it is possible. We're going to try to make as many friends as possible in the legislature and try to help them know that they would be supported if they had the courage to step out and make this happen. So I hope that's those efforts are fruitful. But as it sits right now, they're not going to just automatically pass it without a massive amount of support from the community. So that's what we're building.
Okay, so they have to see the ground game actually be a success, you think?
Yeah. Yes.
Prior to their moving. Right. And it's probably also true that if the ground game is a success, that the initiative is going to get through at the same time, right?
Right. And
so you may well have a situation where you'll have the initiative there, and you'll also have the bill being considered at the same time.
Well, here's the thing: the signature gathering, the initiative portion, doesn't really get started until after the session is over. So in Washington, they only have a session part of January and February, right? Most of both of those months, unless they end up with a special session, for some reason. So that effort will be kind of over before we even start collecting signatures this year. But the thing is that then they will, when we collect our 400,000 signatures next year, The following year, they will have to pull it up, right? Either if we do a signature we have two ways. I don't know if we've talked about this before, but we can do an initiative to the people, which is we have a shorter amount of time to gather signatures from about mid-March to the end of June to collect the 400,000 signatures, and that's what we did in 2016 or 17. And then we have a shorter amount of time to collect signatures, but then it goes on the ballot in November, right?
Right.
Or what we were doing for 2021 is a initiative to the legislature, which you have from March till the end of the year, almost December, the third week in December, to gather the 400,000 signatures. So you have a big window to gather all the signatures. And then that's when it goes on the ballot the following year. So it would be on the ballot 2023. And the legislature could, if the legislature just didn't pass it in the 2023 session, the beginning of the year. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense, but just to clarify, if you take the shorter amount of time for signature route, then it can go on the ballot in November of 2022.
Correct.
If it's passed in 2022, when does it become the law of the land?
I'd have to defer to the legislative team on that, Cindy and Georgia and those guys.
However, I assume that it's a pretty brief time thereafter, right?
Yeah, it is. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, that's all right. I'm sure I can look it up and find out what the rules are in one way or another.
Yeah, I could find out for you too. Maybe
that'd be great.
Watching that knows the answer, and they could tell us in the Facebook chat or something.
Okay, but if you take a longer amount of time and you do an initiative to the legislature, then it could go on the ballot then in November of 2023.
Yes. Well, yes. The legislature would have an opportunity to pass it in the beginning of 2023, and then also have the opportunity to put a competing bill on the ballot in November 2023. So they would have to be side-by-side ballot measures or measures for people to vote on to say whether they want the whole Washington Health Trust or this other legislation that the legislature puts in. So, people don't have a choice.
Okay, so it sounds like the best thing that you can do, if you can do it, is to take the shorter route.
That's right.
And actually have it go on the ballot in November of 2022.
Right. So that's what we did the first time we did an initiative, and with the all volunteer effort, not quite as organized as we are now, we gathered 105,000 signatures. So I'm very hopeful that we could do that again. But we have not made a decision which way we're going to do it 100% yet.
Right. If you could get the 400,000 signatures, though, you would probably have a very good basis for a tremendous ground game,
right,
to get people behind the initiative as well. Just the effort of getting the 400,000 signatures,
correct,
would really require a ground game that was very, very strong. And then with a victory on that, I assume the enthusiasm would just be exploding to get support for the initiative, right?
Every time I talk about it with someone, especially in my profession or in the healthcare industry, they get all excited. So, for example, I went to the dentist today, And if you could see me right now, I'd smile and show you my pretty clean teeth. My hygienist and I started talking about, this. Of course, I bring it up to everybody. And she had no idea about what whole Washington was. And she had limited knowledge about what a single payer system was. But when I explained it to her, she's like, yes, that's what we need. We need that. And while I'm like laying there in the dentist chair with the little thing on my chest and the sunglasses on, she writes down her email address and put it in my purse. So I can send her information about it. So
That's
yes,
great.
people are fired up to do this. The thing is, people just need to know about it. And that's, where, people like you come in really handy. Thank you so much for helping us spread the word out there.
Oh, it's
We do have to
absolutely
get
my
out of our-
pleasure. I've been having such a good time with this.
Oh, good.
It's really, really wonderful.
Oh,
I'm
good.
going to keep right on doing it too.
You're so appreciated. It's good.
Okay, that really clarifies the legislative situation for me. Okay, now, to go to the relationship that whole Washington has to the Red Berets effort,
Mhm.
how would you describe that, characterize that, analyze that?
Could you explain a little bit more what you're trying to get at? That we're integrated. We're one family. I mean, there's no. I'm a Red Beret. Like there's no separation that I could see. You know.
Okay, I think that clarifies it very well.
So
Actually, I mean, I was just trying to get some sense of how much distance there was, if any, from the various interviews. Okay, I've done.
right.
It doesn't seem like there's very much distance. Okay, it seems like you're all Red Berets and you're all whole Washington too.
That's right.
Except for people who do not live in Washington, but even those people are quite in support of the whole Washington effort.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
it seems like a union which is very, very wonderful and very, very close.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I am decidedly happy to hear you confirm that.
When Laura tells her origin story about when she started knitting berets, and she said she went to a whole Washington house party to introduce herself and show what her idea was and everything. I was there, and I have one of her original berets from her first batch, and I'm very proud to have it. And I don't know. There was just a kinship there that can't be denied, and we're just all together, right? Not me, us. It's just a family effort, and we're doing it, and we aren't going to stop.
Yes, I have that impression too, and it's a very catching family effort, if I may add.
Yeah.
Once you sort of start to do it, you just have the feeling it's going to go on and on and on
Yeah.
until it's done. Not just in Washington,
Right.
but until it's done across the whole country.
For sure. We would love to share any of our, what we've learned along the way with anyone that wants to do this in their state.
Have you yourself been involved with the One Payer States organization?
I haven't. No, I haven't been involved with them. I support them. But I'm not involved. I know that other people on the board and in the organization are, and I'm glad of it. Because in a team, everybody has their things that they do, right?
Yes, everybody has their role and all do different things.
Yep. And then we just keep each other, updated as needed on those things. So
Sure.
Just like a family, right? Everybody has their role.
Right. From your vantage point, what do you think of the One Payer States effort, and in what ways do you think they could improve?
I'll have to admit that I don't have an intimate knowledge of them, so I wouldn't be able to form a complete answer to that. Other than I just appreciate that they are organizing and bringing more people in and making the effort to have the state by state strategy so that, I mean, that's for me, that's the only way I think we're ever going to get this. Our federal uh, representation is not going to do this. They've proven it to us for the last what 65 years or more since we, they're not going to do it. So it's going to take us, people on the ground, grassroots, state by state, to get it done. And um, that's what I appreciate about One Pair of States, is that it's organizing for that.
Yes, I think I agree with that as well. The only qualification I would suggest is that okay, I think I see more that there'll be progress from certain key states, such as Washington, Oregon, California, some of the other states I mentioned previously, that will get it done first. And that as each state gets it done, there will be pressure that will develop in some of the other states to have another round of progress and to get it done, okay, as well. So I see more of the New England states falling after New York. Okay, I see things changing in Pennsylvania. I know there's a lot of single payer support there. There are also groups in Pennsylvania that don't want to go through the states and that are very much focused only on the national effort. So I see that, but I see them changing some, getting overwhelmed in Pennsylvania once there's a success in, New York, okay, and in some of the New England states. Okay, and the next thing I see is a jump to the Midwest, where things would crystallize around parts of Michigan, okay, and Minnesota, state of Illinois. Maybe Illinois, okay, and Minnesota going first with something, and then pressure building up in some of the other states. Then what I see is blockages in the states that are controlled by the gerrymandering. With the legislatures so heavily Republican, so heavily tied up, and with no initiative capability to go by them. I see them blocking the state level efforts in those states, and as a result of that, I see a great deal of political pressure descending on the senators in those states, because the elections for the Senate can't be gerrymandered. So the pressure points will then be on those senators to try to move a national program. I don't know how many states have to fall before that starts to happen, but then once it starts to happen, there might be a leap to a national program. Okay, so I don't.
People will vote with their feet. So if Kentucky won't do a single payer system in their state, Kentuckians won't want to, but a number of them will move to a state that has a single payer system if that's what they need, right?
And that's right. It's not far. It's not far to Illinois, from parts of Kentucky, right?
Exactly. It's not far from, Nevada to California, or what I mean. It will. People will see their populations decreasing and notice people moving away, and other states doing so well because they have new people moving in who can, be a part of the economy and the community, that it will push. It will work.
Yes, I've also thought in those terms too. So I see that if the three Pacific Coast states get programs, I don't think it's going to be long before Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, and Colorado get programs.
Right.
Okay, so that it's almost just a wedge of nations on the West Coast, okay, and going across the southern tier there, sort of stopping at the border of Texas, but not until they get to the border of Texas. And then, sort of going up a little into Nevada, okay, and Colorado.
Right. So many people have moved to Texas from California and other, quote, blue states, that I think Texas won't be as hard as it would have been 10 years ago. You know what I mean?
Right, but in Texas, you have the gerrymandering and voter suppression, which is
For sure.
so strong. Okay, if the Democrats can pass this voting rights bill that they're putting in tomorrow for a vote,
Right.
if that can pass, supposedly Joe Manchin came around to it. So if all the Democratic senators were to vote for that, and they have good reason to, because the gerrymandering threatens them actually directly, and the voter suppression too in certain parts of those states.
Right.
So if they were to go for that, it would certainly help Texas to turn.
Yes.
That would be a big factor in shortening the time until Texas turns. I mean, eventually it's going to turn, but we've been waiting for that turn for the last 8 years or so, and it never quite happens because the Republicans always successfully respond with various tricks and rigging, okay, of the elections to continue to hold Texas. How much longer they can do that, though, I don't know. It's
Right.
It's an interesting question. Okay, but the main point, okay, I think I was making was that I don't think this is going to take 50 successes at the state level
No.
before we get to Medicare for all, okay, at the national level. At some point, such pressure is going to build up on those senators, okay, in the other states, and such pressure from the single-payer states that will be able to get an even better deal if they have a NEMA program, that I think the drive for this is going to change national politics and move it over to the left.
About time.
Yeah, and I only hope that happens very, very soon. Okay, it's interesting that you have a concept like that too. How widespread is that kind of thinking in whole Washington?
I think that's right hand in hand with everything else. Right. We are one of the two states that passed a marijuana legalization first.
Yes, I noticed.
So we are still riding high on that victory, pun intended. And so we feel like if we could do that, right, then we can do this. Because even more people want this than want legalized pot. At least in my circles, anyway. In my
Yes,
bubble.
even more people want this, and even more people need it.
For sure. For sure.
The need for it is just so great.
Right, exactly.
I still can't believe that there was no emergency Medicare for All program passed when COVID came.
Oh, they couldn't give us anything like that. We'd never let it go.
Well, I know, but I'm just surprised they thought they had a choice.
Right.
In fact, okay, I have to admit, I think the only reason why they had such a choice was because of Nancy Pelosi. Okay, I think if Debbie Dingell had been in there instead,
Right.
price for the passage of the CARES Act and the $4.6 trillion money cannon that went to the big corporations
Correct.
when they were afraid of a collapse, that the price for that, if Debbie Dingell had been the speaker, would have been having a NEMA bill at least passed on an emergency basis, and
Right.
that they would have had to have lived with that or risk the whole economic structure going down.
I hear you. But I'm kind of operate under the assumption that I mean, excuse my French, Joe, but they don't give a shit about us.
Oh,
They
I
don't.
was hoping you were going to say some French there.
Ooh la la! I took 3 years of French in high school, but I don't remember any of it.
Yeah, so do I.
Favorite.
But I do remember merde.
Oh yeah, merde. They don't give a merde about us.
They don't give a merde.
They are as a whole, our system is willing to sacrifice a certain number of people to keep the status quo moving. And now we know that certain number of people is over 700,000 people in 18, 20 months, right?
Okay, I have a small correction there.
Okay.
According to the Institute for Health Metrics Evaluation from your University of Washington,
Yeah.
it is over 1 million people who died.
Yes, I hear that. Okay. So 1 million people, that's what they're willing to sacrifice just to not institute public health and a single payer Medicare for all system that could have saved lives and will save bankruptcy. I mean, I don't even know how many people are going to lose their whole livelihood out of this who survived, right? Their medical costs are going to bankrupt them and take their homes and cars and whatever. I don't want to deal with sit in the
It happens that
our system does not care about us, and that's why efforts like Whole Washington and any other place that, in our country who are doing a grassroots effort, that is why that is so important, because they are never, like, I hate to sound like Hillary Clinton, but they are never going to do it without us doing it ourselves and forcing them to do it. So that's
all
why.
right. And I certainly agree with that, but I also think that when you say the system, it sounds so abstract and so impersonal and so mechanical, as though it's a machine. And to some degree it is, that is simply grinding us down. And to some degree that's what's going on.
Right.
But it's also the case that if Joe Biden were not the president of the United States right now, but one Bernard Sanders, if Chuck Schumer were not the majority leader of the Senate, and Nancy Pelosi was not the speaker, of the House, things might have gone entirely differently this year.
Absolutely, 100%. And if all the people that represent all the states in the Republican Party didn't exist, then it would be a totally different climate as well. So,
right, but that's asking a lot.
Sure, but if we're asking for
what I'm saying is some relatively small changes might have made a huge difference, because there are points of leverage in the system that you can push on to change things. Like, for example, let's just look at filibuster. Okay?
Okay.
They keep on defending the filibuster And of course they're defending the filibuster because they know it's very important. But I don't know if they even know exactly how important it is, because you really have to think through the way things work because the filibuster happens to exist. Let's just take the present situation as an example. Why do we have a reconciliation bill, a single reconciliation bill, and a period of time since the passage of the American Rescue Plan? In fact, start with the American Rescue Plan. Why was it actually the case that the American Rescue Plan took until March 15th to pass? Why wasn't something like that passed with the $15 an hour minimum wage by the end of January? Well, it was because of the filibuster. They could only get things through with the reconciliation bill. Okay.
Right.
If the filibuster had not existed, they could have gotten the economic impact payment checks through very, very quickly. They could have gotten a clean vote on the $15 an hour thing, forcing Manchin and Sinema and the others to actually vote yes or no for that particular bill, getting them on the line for that particular bill. The other parts of the American Rescue Plan could have been voted on one by one in small bills, and a record established each time in such a way that the individual senators and congressmen would have been more accountable and more responsible for their votes when they passed all those things and they turned to the American Jobs Plan and the American Family Plan. Same thing. Those could have been passed as smaller little bills, forcing people to take positions again and again and again on each one. That changes the system. I mean, the filibuster and its implications blocks up the proper functioning of the legislative system and makes the moneyed interest that much more powerful.
And
So
that's why, Joe, that's why it exists.
That's why it exists, but it's also a point of leverage that if we can win that one victory on the filibuster, an awful lot would change. Here's something else that could totally change the system. Okay, we're worried about the Supreme Court. What if we get some people into the Senate and some people into the Congress who start attaching a little bit of boilerplate from Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution that says the Supreme Court does not have jurisdiction over this bill? And just that short phrase or sentence gets put into each bill that the Congress passes for a while. The Supreme Court is just dealt out of the equation. On election bills, on economic bills, on apportionment bills, on healthcare bills.
So how do you get that
to review it?
How do you think we could get that done? How do we get people in?
I think the first thing we have to do to get everything done is there has to be a ground game that educates people on how important the filibuster is in frustrating their hopes and dreams. Now, we know they don't understand the filibuster and how it ties everything up. Okay, and they don't understand why it's so important. Okay, and they don't seem to understand why it's important just to have a majority vote in the Senate, why it's so important to be able to have lots of votes and lots of individual bills to help to restore democracy in this country. If we could have a campaign like that to explain that sort of thing to them and get them to really, really make that a litmus test in relation to whether they're going to vote for someone, in the next election, we could maybe win that fight. And that would be awfully big win.
I frequently talk about the Marianna that existed prior to Bernie Sanders, so 2015 and older or younger, and I keep her in my mind all of the time because I had no idea what I mean. I couldn't remember my high school civics that told me that, what the three houses of the government were and what the Congress did and what the House did and which one did what and how many representatives. I didn't know who my representatives even were, and there are I would say the majority of Americans are still there. They
I
don't know
agree.
what the word filibuster means.
Yes,
And they have no idea how important it is to their daily lives. So a massive education, effort would be in order even to get to the point where we could do a grassroots effort, and I'm down. Let's do it. We have organizations like in Washington, we have Fix Democracy First, and then countrywide we have like Represent Us and things like that are educating people, bringing more people in to that process, how to get fixed corruption, right? That's what we're kind of talking about, is gerrymandering, the filibuster, big money in politics, all of that. And that is primary to fixing our country, is fixing that corruption, and we know that.
So maybe the key to that, a small little key to that, is what you're doing in Washington right now.
Yeah.
In other words, that effort to get that 400,000 signatures with the 800 signature captains, that design, if it could work in Washington and be replicated in a number of other states, that provides a model for mobilization of the population around a single issue.
Right. And so do you think that when we win our single payer system in Washington, that whole Washington is going to be done? No, we can move on to the next thing,
No,
right?
I didn't.
Just move right on.
I didn't think that whole Washington was going to be done at all. I thought whole Washington at that point was probably going to move to the Green New Deal or something like that.
That's right.
Maybe before moving to the Green New Deal, perhaps not only the Washington organization, but similar organizations in other states where the efforts had been successful would move to getting rid of the filibuster as a priority.
Right.
Because with the fall of the filibuster, the whole reconciliation structure falls. The parliamentarian is gone. The power of the House is restored. In other words, right now, the House is weaker than the Senate in our two-system structure. And the House is the more democratic body, in theory, anyway.
Right.
Okay. But now the Senate keeps on presenting to the House fait accomplis. Okay. And Nancy Pelosi won't contest the fait accomplis. Like, I'll never understand why when Bernie failed to say that he was going to tank the American Rescue Plan if the $15 an hour bill wasn't in it. I think that's what he should have done. He should have said to Schumer, look, you change this bill coming over from the House one bit, and I'm not voting for it. If he had said that, that bill would have hit the floor of the Senate, and Manchin and the other 7 would have had to have directly voted against the American Rescue Plan to get rid of the $15 per hour. Bernie didn't do that. I think in that respect, Bernie failed. However, even then, if that bill had gotten kicked back to the House, of course it was kicked back to the House, for final approval, then it seems to me it was up to Pelosi and to the progressives in the House to say, no, we're not accepting this bill. We'll pass the original bill again and we'll throw it back to the Senate. And we'll tell them we're not passing it without the $15 an hour. Why does the House always just take what the Senate sends back and sign it?
Because Nancy Pelosi is the speaker.
because Nancy Pelosi is a speaker. But we're not so far from getting rid of Nancy Pelosi as speaker. If the squad had stood up to her on January 3rd, we would have been rid of her then. They had enough votes just in those 8 to 10 people to totally block her. There was no possibility of Kevin McCarthy getting in. I know because I did the math on it. It wasn't math, it was just arithmetic. Okay. I don't like to aggrandize what I say.
Hashtag Matt, right?
Okay. And it was just arithmetic. Okay. But the point is, it was clear Kevin McCarthy could never have gotten in. Nancy Pelosi could never have gotten in. She could have been blocked 6 rounds, 7 rounds, 8 rounds until she got tired and left. And they would have had to have gotten a speaker to Nancy Pelosi's left because the center of the Democratic caucus is to Nancy Pelosi's left. So Hakeem Jeffries would never have made it into the speakership. If the squad had had more guts, they could have gotten her out on January 3rd.
Well, the good news is the squad is building their guts right now, right, with the reconciliation bill, and
Well, we have to see. It looks like they're not standing firm for the $3.5 trillion.
They're standing firm for passing it, though, and I'm not here to critique them. I don't know enough to be speaking like I'm an expert on any of it. I'm happy that they are standing up, at least to the degree that they are. They could be doing it better and more, and we don't have all the information that they have. So it's unfortunate that they're not acting more like the Tea Party. That's what I would have liked them to act like. But they're doing a little bit, and I have to celebrate that. It's kind of like I watch. Okay, I'm gonna open myself up here a little bit, but I watch TikToks a lot, and it kind of relaxes me. And then the algorithm that I'm in, I see a lot of people talking about mental health because that's the field that I work in. And when you're interested in something, it shows you more you're interested in, right?
Right.
And I had a change of heart a few weeks ago when somebody's TikTok said, celebrate that you got up today. You brushed your teeth. You put on shoes. You might not have gone outside, but you're winning because you're up and you fed yourself. And take those wins when you can get them. So I've had a change of heart because I always thought that to succeed in life, I had to do it all and make money or get further at the whole Washington or sign up another volunteer every single day. You know what I mean? Like that productivity was my success. And I've had a change of heart in the last few months. Just getting out of bed is a success some days. If you're only giving 3% today, at least you gave 3, right? And I want the House, I want AOC and Cori Bush and Pramila Jayapal to pass it all, to do it all. And I that's what I want. And then they know that there's a lot of people that want them to do that. And they're not doing it for whatever reason. But what they are succeeding at, I'm going to celebrate, right? What they do, what they are doing is okay, you did that. I'm not going to be jumping up and down, but okay, you did that. Now build on that and do something else, right? Do another thing. So what I'm saying that at least they're standing up with this reconciliation bill. Last year, I would not have thought they would have done it, or 2 years ago, or 4 years ago, certainly not 10 years ago. Nobody would have batted an eye. The neoliberals would have just run a rock shot, over everybody, and nothing would have happened. We know that because we lived through 2008, 2009, right? In the Great Recession, as they call it. They didn't do shit for us then, and they wouldn't have done anything for us this time at all if it hadn't been for the progressive movement, Bernie Sanders, AOC, Cori Bush, all the people. And we got that, right? We are making progress. And I know it's not enough. It's not near enough, but we are making progress. And so we have to acknowledge that and then push for more.
Okay, I certainly do acknowledge that, and I'm certainly for pushing for more. But when you get into a negotiation situation, what you always have to do is you have to define a bottom line.
Sure.
And you have to be ready to walk away from the table. That's, just old union tactics.
Right.
Okay, everybody knows what it takes to be successful. Sometimes what it takes to be successful is to take the hit, is to walk away from the table and just say, if we don't win, but nobody wins. The question is, where is that line? Where do they stop? Now, I'm not so simplistic as to look at it from the standpoint of some dollar figure. Like, I don't think it's so important that they get, the 3.5 trillion. If they get 2 trillion, but they don't compromise on any of the programs,
right?
In other words, they just cut the time, okay?
Yep.
I'll say that's a victory. And the reason why I'll say that's a victory is because once the American people get a taste of those programs, I think they can run on them in 2022, and they can get a victory in 2022, and they can come back and pass the rest and much more than the rest.
I agree.
Okay? The important thing is to keep the programs intact and get them started. So I'm not fixated, on a particular number. But I really don't like this talk that I'm hearing from some of the centrists, that what we have to do is we have to cut it and we have to do a few things well. Because I fear those things that they pick out to actually do well will not be the things the American people really want, will not be the things that will get some more progressives into Congress, will not be the things that move the ball down the field, actually.
Right.
And the reason why I think that is because I see what those same people have done before. The same people who are saying this now have never done anything well.
Right. Yes.
Have never gotten anything the people wanted. And have always thought, like in 2009, 2010, they, when they passed the Affordable Care Act, they were celebrating. They were celebrating the most wonderful thing. They passed the Affordable Care Act. And the American people were angry they passed the Affordable Care Act because there was so little in it. And they had no inkling, apparently, they were going to get killed in 2010. And they had no idea the Republicans were going to gerrymander the whole country because they blew it in 2009 and 2010. They just weren't in touch. And it's not surprising that Nancy Pelosi is not in touch. I mean, as soon as she opened up her refrigerators for us and showed us what was in those freezers, we knew that she was never in touch.
No.
Right?
No.
Okay, Bonnie asks.
She's never even been in touch.
No, I don't.
In touch.
She might have been in touch when she learned about politics at her father's knee back in Baltimore.
Yeah, right.
People are already asking if they move there, how soon can they get the coverage on the single payer? Is that what you're saying?
I do believe the answer to that is right away. As soon as you establish residence, like you have an address and you turn on the light and you got a light bill, you're a resident of Washington. There's no waiting, as far as I know. I'm if somebody in the chat wants to contradict me, that's okay.
But the way I read the language is, if you come in from out of state, and you're looking for medical care, then you're not eligible.
Right, but if you become a resident,
if you come to Washington with a job, then you instantly have the protection. If you come to Washington and are looking for a job, if you come to Washington, establish a residence, and are looking for a job, you're covered. Looking for a job is all you need, okay, to be covered. So the residential requirements are really pretty liberal, I'd say.
Yeah, pretty minimal.
Yeah, pretty minimal. Okay, so Washington is prepared to risk that there's going to be a flood of people coming into Washington because maybe people in Washington have an idea that they could use the help of those people in Washington's economy. And that maybe it won't be a matter of just covering people who can't do anything.
Well, even if somebody came here who was disabled and couldn't work, and they came here for the healthcare, they're still creating jobs because it's still nurses need a job, doctors, housekeepers, CNAs. They're still contributing to the financial sovereignty or the financial the economy in Washington State. So that you don't have to be directly. And in Washington, we don't have an income tax at all. So we could gather most of our revenue from a sales tax. So if you establish residency in Washington, you're already a taxpayer because you have to pay sales tax on your, toilet paper or your new bicycle or whatever, So that's another sticking point for me. I ran for office last year in 2020 for the state legislature, and just fighting that idea that we have the most regressive tax system in the country, and an income tax would actually lower your taxes to the people in the state. Boy, that was a big topic, big topic.
So that was a great answer, Marianna. I really like that one. Okay, let's go take a look at some of the comments we've had.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. Time to look at what people have had to say. I'm scrolling back to the early parts of the session. Okay, Amber says, in regard to the trust, paying for caregivers to do work in the home, the state of Washington requires certain certifications in order to do that. You can't just walk into someone's home and do that kind of work. So we also need to push for a job program for training.
Well, there is a class to take to be an in-home caregiver, but a family member can be your caregiver and get paid by the state. So there isn't like you don't have to go be a CNA or anything like that. There's some classes to take and a test to basically a food safety test and that sort of thing. But you don't have to have a certain level of education to be a caregiver in the state of Washington.
So the caregivers in the home would be paid by the whole Washington Health Trust?
Yeah.
That's an amazing feature because it kind of reminds me of the federal job guarantee bill.
Aha.
In some ways. It's, there's a little bit of similarity there because one question that always arises with respect to the federal job guarantee bill is, will it cover in-home care? In-home caregivers, can they be paid under the job guarantee bill? And the answer to that question is always, well, if your local area specifies that as a job in the federal job guarantee program, yes, it would be covered.
We need it. I did that job for a while. It's a great job.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting job to do, and it's a rewarding job to do, but you have to be paid.
Sure.
do it because you got to live.
Right. Right. I did it while I was in nursing school.
Carmuna says, "Go start. Got it. I no longer have patience for the telly. However, Hunger Games, the movie, was good." I found Hunger Games, the movie, to be very disturbing because we're so uncomfortably close to that situation here.
I know.
Amber says, for example, for a caregiver to be able to even administer basic medications, they have to have a certified nursing assistant license, and they have to have their nurse delegation certificate, both of which take some time to obtain.
And my understanding is that nurse delegation can happen to a caregiver who's not a CNA. They can just be a NAC, which is a they didn't go to the class to be a caregiver. So they can delegate to a family member. A nurse can delegate to whoever gets hired. So one of the ways that I was a caregiver in Washington State was as a private caregiver. So I didn't work part of the time. I didn't work through an agency. So they have all kinds of agencies that hire caregivers and then assign you to different people, right? Well, you can also do it as kind of like a contractor. You can just go to the where I did it was the Area Agency on Aging, and they just have people who have posted in their system that they want a caregiver this many hours. This is what they've been approved for. These are the jobs that they do, and then you can take that job and meet the person, see if you have a rapport, and then provide the care. I was not a CNA. I was an NAC, which is a little bit different. Nurse assistant certified, but it's not the same thing. So and I didn't administer medications to people. I helped them fill their reminder, their little pill box. They would tell me which ones to put in because maybe they couldn't see very well or whatever. They were pretty high functioning. So there probably is a higher level of care that would require somebody to have a little bit more education. But for basic in-home care, to remind people to take their meds, to empty their catheter, to help them out of bed, to help them get a shower, do their laundry, cook their food, that sort of stuff. You don't have to have a higher level of education, but wouldn't hurt to have it. So yes, educate more people, send them to the CNA class, send them to nursing school, all of the stuff. That would be great. But as it sits right now, like if I were to become disabled, my husband could be my caregiver, and he doesn't have a CNA license. But he could be delegated to by a nurse how to put the meds into the cup and when to reminder and how to document that I took them and that sort of thing. My brother is a caregiver for people with disabilities, and his wife is an administrator for their company. Neither are CNAs. Neither have any degree in the medical field. They just love people and started the work and take care of people. So yeah,
It's cool.
Can you get that training at a community college?
Yeah, you can. And agencies can get a teacher certified, and they can do the class themselves, and then you have to pass the state test. So the thing is, you don't have to take you don't have to pay for a college class to take it, but as long as you can pass the state test, then you can be a CNA. So however you learn that information, all you have to do is be able to pass the test.
Okay.
In Washington, anyway.
Okay, thank you, Marianna. So, but Laura Fielding says, on the demand for a hearing note, I have been given an idea by Georgia Davenport to add to our Vancouver November 19th event. This action will be the footage Kenny Ballantyne would love. We need everyone in their whole Washington Red and Red Berets. This action will be on Saturday the 20th. Okay, the day after the Vancouver November 19th event. So Jeffrey Denton says, a hell of a lot of people who don't take Citizens United money have gotten elected since the political revolution started in 2016, but it's mostly about witnessing the corruption and waking people up that the gatekeepers will never talk about. Yeah, I think I understand that, Jeffrey. I think that's a pretty good point. Yeah, the gatekeepers don't want to talk about anything good that's happening for fear it will encourage people to do more. And Laura says, my only concern with the ballot initiative to the legislature is that they can put a competing measure on the ballot. Yeah, that came through loud and clear, okay, from Marianna. And I had exactly the same concern about that. That's why I thought it was better to take the quick route, of course. And Laura says, I understand that the legislature almost never does this. However, I would be willing to bet in this case they will. We need to be prepared that they very likely might. I certainly agree the probability is very high, and they would probably put up a bill and propagandize that and spend a fortune propagandizing the other bill. And there's a very good chance they'd be able to pass that because they distort what the WW initiative was really about. Also, with their control of the mainstream press. Yeah, you have a lot of problems.
Yeah.
And Laura says, Andre Stackhouse needs his signature captains pronto if we would even want to think of an initiative to the people. But I will say the energy is higher when it's to the people. It just is. I think I agree with that too. Steve Gonzo says, what would 1/2 a Build Back Better bill mean for you and your dead family? Squad game. Steve, it depends on, as I said before, if all the main elements are kept intact and just the time of application, instead of being like 10 years, is only 5 years, okay, or is 4 years or 3 years, as long as the spending is at the same level for those 2-3 years, as would have been the case, or 5 years, as would have been the case for the 10 years, and all the programs are still there, okay, in the compromise bill, then it becomes up to the people whether to continue it or not. And they will continue it if they really like it. So the most important thing is making sure that they really like what they're getting from the get-go, and there's enough of that they're excited about it. You know, people have to get excited about it. The thing that happened with the Affordable Care Act is it wasn't even slated to go into effect in 2014. How could anybody get excited about it? I mean, they passed the damn thing. That was political malpractice, what they did there. And Laura Fielding says, that's amazing, Marianna Everson. Tell your dentist, everyone. I think that relates to your story about what happened when you went to the dentist. Carmen Eunice says, neat little spin on that, Ghost Start. Laura says, we are indeed a family. Marianna Everson owns my very first beret, I believe. Oh, that was your very first beret, Laura. Amazing. Jeff says, it's just that Red Berets is a national Medicare for All group and Whole Washington is a state single-payer health trust group. That's really the only difference. I think what we were talking about, though, there, Jeffrey, is really the difference in the movement. Is there any real difference in the concerns of the two movements? And I think when Marianna said that there was really no distance, I think that's probably what she had in mind. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Ghost Star was talking about irritable bowel syndrome. I'm not sure what that was about. Okay, exactly. Oh, it was about a problem Carmen Muniz was having, and evidently Pepto-Bismol wasn't helping. And so Lisa Theobald says, let's craft a bill for West Virginia that covers everyone and has such a surplus that the politicians start drooling when we pitch it and people recall Joe Manchin. Have they got recall in West Virginia? Are you sure about that, Lisa, that they have a recall process in West Virginia? I mean, if they do, we ought to start working on that right now. If they had a recall, some people would have started that by now. I mean, the Reverend Barber would probably have put some money into that, wouldn't he?
Yeah, West Virginia can't wait. They might do something.
Yeah, that's a good slogan. West Virginia can't wait. Get rid of them now.
They have
Get rid of them.
an organization in West Virginia called West Virginia Can't Wait. It's a grassroots, progressive organization, and they have
But have they got a recall procedure so that
Wow.
he would be forced to stand in 2022?
I know. I don't know. When is his next election cycle? Is it
2024.
24? Yeah.
He was reelected in the wave election for the Democrats of 2018. Sinema was also reelected then. And both
Right.
were reelected because it was, or actually Sinema was elected for the first time then, but both were elected, okay, because it was a wave election for Democrats. Actually, Manchin had a fairly close election. It was not a sweep for him. And without the wave, he may not have won. So,
Right.
in fact, if the Democratic National Committee had decided to support Paula Jean instead of supporting Joe Manchin, he might not have won the primary then either.
Right.
Carmen says, as it was, I think Paula Jean got 25% of the vote without a single dollar from the Democrats. Carmen says, haha, go start. What a pal in the pants, yeah. Carmen says, hell yeah, Lisa leave some icons. I can't tell what they are. They look like they're smiles, sardonic smiles. And Shane says, hey, just got off the air. And Lisa left an icon I can't read. Laura says, and remember, orgs like Whole Washington will have a giant database where we could still opt to mobilize volunteers to help push the national fight and or fundraise to help organizing efforts for NEMA. So we should not underestimate what states who have been successful will be able to offer the national movement intangible resources. And I think that's very true. And Carmen says, hey, Shane. Shane says, hey. Lisa Theobald says they are bought. I'm not sure who the they are, but since almost all of them are bought, it's probably doesn't matter exactly who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I still don't believe the squad, okay, are bought, or some of the other progressives in the caucus are bought. Because, just from looking, at opensecrets.org, they don't get a lot of money from the interests.
Right.
So I don't think they're bought by that. They might be bought by other promises like committee spots or something like that, which are in the power of the people who are bought to allocate. So there might be a kind of indirect buying like that. Carmen says, like MJ used to sing, quote, they don't really care about us. I'm missing the MJ reference. Who was it?
Michael Jackson. There's a song that
Michael Jackson.
all I have to say is they don't really care about us. And I can't sing, so sorry.
Okay, I was never a big Michael Jackson fan, so it's. I mean, as you might guess, I'm kind of oriented towards Beethoven, Sibelius, Tchaikovsky.
Lovely.
I spend very little time with the Michael Jacksons of the world. Carmen says, hell, the establishment is willing to let white populations suffer and die if only legislation happens to benefit, if any legislation happens to benefit the people of color. Yeah, well, that is all too true. Steve Gonzo, or Ghost Start, says, skinhead, deadhead, everybody gone, bad situation, aggravation, everybody allegation in the suite on the news, everybody dog food, bang, bang, shot dead, everybody's gone mad, they don't really care about it. I think that was quite a little rant. It's a good thing it's hard to throw me off my game, Steve. It really is. Carmen says, bring back, quote, Schoolhouse Rock on Saturday mornings to help educate about the government.
YouTube. Kids watch YouTube all the time.
They do watch YouTube all the time. So do I.
Me too.
And I'm no kid. Yeah. We no longer have cable here. We just have YouTube all day long.
Yep, I don't have cable either.
Yeah. Well, actually, I have a cable. I just don't have cable TV.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I have cable from my computer.
Right. I know I've been like struggling with my DSL. I get internet from the phone company.
Ah,
I struggle with the speed of my internet a lot, as you noticed when I froze for half the session. And so I actually looked up how to pay the evildoer for Comcast for, cable internet. So I might have to do it.
okay, so if you're
The CenturyLink, who I have now, that's the phone company, or Comcast, Xfinity, for internet service in my area. So
so those are your choices.
yeah.
We have Comcast here and Verizon, okay, as well. So we switched to Verizon a few years ago. Their cable service is faster.
Oh, cool. Good.
It's a good bit faster, and we also have not only the wireless service inside the house, but I can also directly cable up to the internet. Okay, I bought a 6-foot cable for something like $7,
Good.
so I can cable up when I need to cable up. That is nice. Of course, Verizon does cost a good bit. There's no doubt about that. Of course, that says, I'm just a bill shitting here on Capitol Hill. Yeah, that's good. That's what happens to a lot of bills on Capitol Hill. Laura says, that's indeed what it looks like. Fran Barra says, but Marianna, and there are some hearts, sending love from Vermont and more hearts. Yes, Fran Bauer is sending us back lovely pictures from Vermont. I'm sure this time of year there are lovely pictures from Washington as well.
Yes. Yes.
There are lovely pictures from Virginia, by the way, too. Things are no slouch here. As you start to drive towards the Shenandoahs,
Oh, beautiful.
there's quite some scenery to see.
Stunning.
Karen says the House should be called the Cave of Representatives because that's all they do, cave. And yeah, there's a bunch of that stuff that's going around now. Let's see if there are any more substantive questions or comments. But Laura leaves a link to Healthcare Authority Washington about assets, free or low-cost residency flowchart. I guess that will define how to become a resident in Washington, or when you become a resident in Washington. So for those who have that question, that's a useful link. Carrie Wallace says, Marianna Everson, you go girl. Hashtag universal healthcare. Hashtag single payer now. Hashtag our future, our fight. www.wholewashington.org.
Yeah, that's where if anyone wants to volunteer with us, in state, out of state, anyone, if you want to donate or volunteer, you can go to that website, wholewashington.org. We just got a beautiful update. So if you haven't been there in a while, go check it out. Beautiful.
Okay, I was to wholewashington.org just yesterday, but I was looking for very specific information. I don't know if I got to the beautiful updates, but I'll go back and look some more. I actually do frequently go to your site for this or for that. I find. Laura says, I consider both the Red Berets and whole Washington, which, as Marianna said, are deeply interconnected, to be national Medicare for all groups. Whole Washington has organized a ton of events in support, of national Medicare for all, far more than other, quote, national, unquote, single payer orgs. I know that's true, Laura. In fact, I had to wonder, this National Single Payer Coalition.org that just got started, I have to wonder how many events they've had in support of national Medicare for all. You know, the K-Tillo group. I've been kind of wondering about that. And Michelle, the VA says, Berlioz? Yes, we just were listening to Berlioz, as a matter of fact, the other day. And actually, the Symphonie Fantastique. I was trying to point out to Bonnie which one was the witches' Sabbath movement. That was very interesting. Lana Dell says, the Cave of Representatives, I like it. Laugh out loud. And Carmen says, thanks. Lana and Marianna says hi to everyone from Facebook, where she has left, where she's left a hi. Okay, so I think we are just about done. There will be a chance for a few more comments, because I want to announce that tomorrow Lisa Theobald will be my co-host, and we have a special program involving the single payer movement in the state of Massachusetts. Two candidates for the state legislature in Massachusetts, Terry Cudney and Kyle Davis, will be coming on to talk about their ideas about single payer programs and what they want to do in Massachusetts. So that should be a very interesting discussion. And of course, we'll be asking them about the national single payer movement as well, and about fighting on all fronts. And we'll be playing around with a lot of those ideas. And it's going to be really, really interesting. And we'll be talking strategy from state to state as well. And Michelle de Villiers says we should play that one at Pelosi's house. Yes, the Witch's Sabbath, very appropriate. At Pelosi's house. I love that, Michelle. And Ghost Star adds the Wine Cavers, WHINE, the Wine Cavers. That's very good. I like that. Laura says, much love and gratitude to you both, and thank you, as always, to this Joseph Firestone, FOAF community. You are so appreciated. Well, thank you, Laura. You are so appreciated as well. Carmen says, it was nice listening to you, Marianna. Marianna, it was easy to absorb.
Oh, that's not the first time, Joe. Don't worry.
Okay.
I think I may have gotten votes in my election, a certain percentage of votes, because people thought my sign said marijuana for the people, not Marianna.
Yeah, well, you know, Marianna is a very lovely name.
Thank you.
Really is a very lovely name. And Catherine Lewandowski says, hello, Joe and Marianna. I'm Everson. I had a meeting and was late. I'm sure it was a good discussion. It was a very good discussion. We went into a lot of different kinds of politics, and we went into some really critical areas explaining what's going on in whole Washington at this time as well. It cleared up a lot for me. Carmen says, hi, Ghost Star, and Laura Fielding says, That was the fucking best. So thank you, Laura. I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to here, but
I
as
think he's
long
talking about the marijuana comment. Oh, that was very good.
okay, I guess the best things are the things you don't intend that spontaneously emerge, right?
That's right. That's right.
Those
We'll have to clip that out and use it as an ad.
that would be a great ad.
Pay attention.
And Ghost Start says, "I'm much better now. I got it off my chest." Night all. Okay, Steve, it's all right. I mean, we don't mind rants here and strange communications from time to time. The only thing that puts us off a little is when we get these trolls who come in en masse. The same person, obviously making comments under 4 or 5 troll names. We just ignore them, of course, and they don't make too much difference in our discussion. But still, it's always kind of annoying to see them.
Yeah, I have personal trolls. I'm at that level in my local community that I have personal trolls, like local people who go on my Facebook page or live streams or whatever and troll me.
Yeah, they're on there specifically to troll you.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I've noticed their comments on some of the posts on Whole Washington's page, and so we just they help the algorithm. The more they comment, the more people will see our posts. So that's fine, But yeah,
that helps. In the late part of December, I had a very interesting troll experience. It was the first thing I'd done using Zoom. Okay, and I made the mistake of leaking the link, okay, to the Zoom link.
Right.
So just a couple of people who came into the meeting we had, which was there to discuss actually political strategy about how to replace Nancy Pelosi on the 3rd. And there was this guy who came on with a heavy British accent. And it was obviously he was educated, okay, at a university over there, because he was so clever at the obscene rhetoric, and he just let loose a stream of artfully constructed obscenities for about 5 minutes until we figured out how to shut him down completely.
How to kick him out, yeah.
Yeah, which we did, of course. But it was so disturbing that anyone could be so vicious just because we were doing something political. It was there was something a little disturbing about it. It was obvious that he was a professional,
right,
as well. That he was doing it, in a very calculated way. There wasn't even any particular passion in back of it. It was just a very professional job.
Professional disruptor, right?
Yeah, yes. So Shane says, "Lana, thanks for putting me in touch with Johnny today. He's going to be great help to KRTD. KRTD? Yes. He's willing to help with our website and possibly do a show and help in other ways. But thanks so much." You talking about Johnny Axum here? He's a great guy, if it's Johnny Axum. Carmen says, "Laugh out loud, Lana. How fitting. #vacate the chair." And Lana says, "Shane, you're very welcome. I hope it works out great." And Melissa Green came on. That is one of the troll names we get. How dare you call me a troll? There's Melissa Green. As soon as Shane appears, there's Melissa Green not long afterwards. Lana says, that proves I am not important. I have no personal trolls. Laugh out loud.
Well, run for office.
Yeah, run for office, you'll get some, right?
Yeah.
Laura says, well, they must not be doing very much organizing if they have time to come troll. But as you say, if it helps the algorithms, it works for us faux affers.
That's right.
And John hashtag TYT Army says independent left news is being backed by Jimmy Dore and Kyle Kulinski. They each gave him $500K. Hashtag spread the word. John hashtag TYT Army. I do not believe that for a minute. I know indie left, and I don't believe that for a New York second. I'm sorry. I'm from New York, by the way.
I can
So-
hear it.
Oh, can you hear it? Can you really hear it? Oh, good. That's good.
Mhm.
And Solana says, I guess I'm really proud of being from New York. I'm just one of those people. Solana says, my British relatives are excellent at racy innuendo and the like. They revel in this. I know. They must spend half their days cussing. And Lana says, yes, Johnny A. Carmen says, and Melissa sounds more like a stalker. Poor Shane. Yeah. Okay. So Shane Coughlin is the president of KRTD Media. And that's why every time you see KRTD Media, we say Shane. That's the connection. And John has to, so we know the indie left is being backed by corporate donors also. How do you know that, John TYT Army? I'll buy. Kostat says, I left my trolls on Facebook. Lena says, I told Ann Jones, you sound just like Bernie, laugh out loud. I can't sound just like him. He comes from Brooklyn and I come from the Bronx. No, he might really sound just like me. I agree. He can sound very similar to me from time to time. And John says
There we go.
he left the TYT Army. John TYT Army says he left the TYT. So, do you want a medal for that? Okay, I think we're done for the night.
Yeah. May as well not argue.
I'm sorry.
I say we may as well not argue.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason to argue about that, right? So I think we all ought to go and have a very nice night, and maybe have a glass of wine if you're so inclined.
Well, I got to work in the morning, so that's not an option for me. But I think my family's out there cooking a nice dinner for me. So.
Oh, that would be great. That would be very great at this point. So thank you very much for coming, Marianna. It was a great conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think we laughed a lot.
Yes.
And I think that's important. Very, very important.
Thank you, Joe, for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm honored that you had me here.
Okay, it was my pleasure. And you don't need to feel honored because the honor was all mine.
Aw, sweet.
And but Lana says, nice to meet you, Marianne. And Lana is a very good one to meet. She is always very, very helpful.
Good.
I can tell you that from personal experience. Dolores says, thank you for a great discussion and show. Thank you, Dolores, for all your sharing and your work. I know you're always there in the background making things go. And Laura says, thank you, Marianna Everson. Great. And Dolores says, good night, all. And Lisa says, love you all. And I think that's it, folks. Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night, folks. I'm going to end it.